Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to 200 Years of Hamilton County in 15 Minutes, the captivating historical podcast that takes you on a time-traveling journey through the remarkable stories, extraordinary individuals, and significant locations that have shaped the fascinating county of Hamilton here in Indiana. I'm your host, Adam Grubb, and alongside me is a talented storyteller and historian, David Heighway. With each episode, we're going to dive deep into the rich tapestry of Hamilton County's past, uncovering hidden gems, untold tales that span 2 centuries. From the founding pioneers who carved out their livelihoods in this land to the monumental events that have left an indelible mark on its history, will leave no stone unturned. Now, whether you're a history enthusiast, maybe a curious local, simply seeking to uncover the hidden gems of Hamilton County, this podcast is your ticket to an unforgettable journey through time. Get ready to immerse yourself in captivating narratives, intriguing anecdotes, and surprising revelations for sure, all in bite-sized episodes designed to fit into your busy schedule. So buckle up. Let's go. 200 Years of Hamilton County History with David Heighway. It's now time for education. Now today, David, it's very easy to say that education is what we're known for in Hamilton County. People are moving here in droves. The corporations are coming here. Small businesses set up here and start here and live here. They bring their roots here because of the school systems. It is really part of the fabric of Hamilton County. And it's not always been that way, but it's been an important part of the building and the construction of this great county. Tell me about the history, the first several schools, and why education at that time was an important point to put their stake in the ground and say, this is going to be important for us if we're going to develop a county like this.
Yes. It was just an interesting way to kind of make sure that everybody was a part of what was going on. That's one of the things about early education, as much as anything else, is in order to serve in politics or to do anything like that, you better have some kind of literacy or something like that. That was kind of a necessary thing there. And so now the first schools, of course, were very, very basic. We have a local historian named Augustus Finch Schertz, and Mr. Schertz was actually the son of one of the first pioneers that came into the area, and he actually wrote about the schools that he attended when he was a small boy. It was literally the one-room log cabin sort of a thing. He remembered that there were no glass in the windows. There was simply greased paper to give a little bit of light. There were just benches. There were no desks or anything like that. And along one wall, there was actually some posts driven in there. And then there was a plank put across that, and that was your writing desk. He remembers, though, mostly, like, for instance, punishments, schools. That's just the way kids remember. Apparently, at that point in time, one of the big punishments was there was a hole in the floor where there'd been a knot hole or something. You were supposed to lie at full length and look down, put one eye over that hole and look down, and just lie there for an hour. I'm not quite sure what that was, if it was an uncomfortable position, but this is one of the things he absolutely remembered from that time period.
Now, we talked a couple episodes ago about wolf attack. There were wolf attacks on teachers. Wolves were big here in this area. Is that a real thing?
Yes.
Wolf attacks.
Absolutely. This one actually happened, and it's in Mr. Schertz's history. There was Amos Palmer, who was a doctor, who was traveling from his school, which was actually up in the Strawtown area, down to his home, which was down more towards Clarksville, down in Wayne Township there. And he's going through there in the 1820s, and he knows that there are wolves still in the county at that point in time. Gets himself a big stick, is walking through the area, but as he's going along there, they do in fact descend on him. He leaps up into a tree and literally spends the whole night in this tree with these wolves circling around him underneath. Finally, there's a hunting party by sheer happenstance that comes through the next morning, and they drive off the wolves, and he's able to go on and actually get to his house. So wow. When I do my school programs and I tell the kids about, okay, you think it's tough now.
Right. You should have been here then. Now, Hamilton County eventually created numbered district schools.
Yes.
What does that mean, and why was that important then?
Okay, because what it was, as much as anything else in the various townships, is that you wanted to be able to get a school close to where the students could be. That was where each student would maybe be about a mile from the school itself. So as a result, what they did is they just designated schoolhouses in populated areas. And the only thing they could do to name them is literally just call them by number. So if you look at old maps of the time, they'll say school number 1, school number 2, school number 3, and this is all in one township to be able to give them some kind of education. And once again, these are schools where all students of all ages attended. They would go up even as far as what we would consider today high school age. Until you were ready to work on the farm, this was essentially what you were doing to learn. So.
The first high schools, Noblesville Seminary and Westfield Union, which are still today much bigger, much bolder, but those were the first schools in Hamilton County. Was Noblesville and Westfield.
Well, the first secondary education. The seminary was actually done by an act of the state legislature. Every county was supposed to have one. It's not religious related, by the way. This is literally just an thing for higher education, and it was actually down where Seminary Park is today. Obviously, it's gone now. What's cool is that the Westfield one, which was formed actually about 10 years later, the Noblesville one was in 1851, the Westfield one was in 1861, and it's still there. It's now Union Bible College. So,
the first libraries, as we educate Hamilton County back in the day, the first libraries, Westfield and Noblesville again. So
yes.
They had the first schools and the first high school, and now the first libraries. Where and how did those start? And where are they today in relation to where they physically were back then?
Yes. So, with that, it's kind of interesting. Those were done because of a donation by somebody who was connected with the New Harmony movement, a guy by the name of McClure. He donated money, so if you were interested, he would give you money to get together a certain collection of books. That was back in the 1850s. I think it was 1856 when we got our act together on that. And the Westfield one lasted on and off for many years, and for a while it actually shut down. So the one now today is not connected with whatever was there in Westfield at the time. However, the Noblesville one is literally the ancestor of the library that you use today. And we actually have books left over from that early library from the 1850s and 1860s, just because various people kind of kept donating to it, kept it going in one form or another. I'm not quite sure where the 1850 library was. I think it was, well, I know it was someplace on the courthouse square, but eventually it became where there was a harness maker shop, and then it went above what is today the Lacey building, then over to the high school, and then finally first to the Carnegie Library where the City Hall is, and then over to the building where it is today.
Why do you think that the school systems in Carmel, Noblesville, Fishers, Westfield are they where they are today? And where did that kind of first education foothold take on here in Hamilton County? Because this could have been just farmland. This could have been so many things. But education and schooling has seemingly been so important for so long. Why do you think that is?
It's interesting, and it has to do with self-improvement. That's one of the things, again, is that people were kind of looking at doing better. The Quakers in Westfield were a big leader in that effort.
Right.
That's why they built, of course, the Union High School over there. That was actually an attractions. That was a school where people traveled to go to that, even from places like Noblesville. They went there. So that was kind of one of the things. Then when the gas boom came up, there was a lot of money, and people said, if we're going to have money, let's get a decent educational system. So that's when they started building high schools in places like Westfield, in Walnut Grove, and different things like that. Some of them didn't last, but it was an attempt to go for something like that anyway. But that gas boom is really when you saw the high schools.
Well, and that's what I have here. I have a gas boom community high schools. That's really started. The gas boom then started community high schools, and not just in the towns, but then the surrounding areas and more community based to bring in the kids from the farms and to bring in all of the county kids, as it were, that were not living in the city. Because of the influx of residents in Hamilton County, more schools were there. Sheridan was one of those. Gymnasium I have down. Walk me through how that worked.
It's funny because, of course, basketball is high holy here in Indiana. And one of the things that Sheridan decided to do in the 1930s, their original high school had burnt down, and they wanted to build a real basketball high school. And so that's what they did. They actually built what was the largest venue probably in this part of central Indiana. Literally, they held a Republican convention there in the 1930s. So it's now an apartment complex. It's, I think, the Black Hawk apartment complex. But literally, the Sheridan School that was built in the 1930s was truly epic in what it had there.
Now, in 1960s, modern school consolidation happened. That's what we see today. But that really wasn't that long ago. When we think about 200 years of Hamilton County history, it wasn't that long ago. Walk us through that, and for those that weren't around then or don't know what that was like, what that even means.
Okay, basically it's the suburban boom. You have lots and lots of people starting to move in. So the smaller high schools in places like Cicero and things like that, it's kind of like, no, let's make a bigger environment because we need to cover the whole township, something like that. We tended to think in terms of townships here in this county. So kind of making larger and larger things. Finally, that's when you had a lot of these big schools really starting to form there, was when they started to consolidate the smaller high schools, started to get all of these things together.
Now, there is more schools that have been built and continue to kind of expand out. There's talk, of course, in the next 100 years, how many more schools and how big is too big? Back then, though, how many kids were in a school? Were there hundreds? Was there a need for all of the different schools in the towns and in these communities? Was it just because people didn't want to travel as far to get to their school? Why the influx of community schooling at the time?
I think what it was is organizational as much as anything else. They really wanted to get standardized education. They wanted to make sure that everybody had an equal opportunity to get a good education. So as a result, they were trying to upgrade as much as they could and give everybody a possibility of having a good library, a good gymnasium, good performing arts, that kind of thing. Give the kids a chance.
David, there is a Bible college today that used to be a high school. Did you know that was called Westfield Union High School?
Absolutely. That is interesting because it's great that the buildings are still there today. It was started in 1861, and people would literally travel from other spots. They would come from Noblesville. They would actually take what was called the Midland Railroad, where the Midland Trace is today, and travel out to Westfield to be able to do that. And it did have definitely a higher achieving sort of graduate. In 1901, one of their women graduates actually was named postmaster of a town called Hortonville here, which was kind of a big step, giving a woman that kind of responsibility in that time and day. So it definitely was a institution of higher learning. It really sort of set standards around the area. It had faded, of course, because they started getting into the gas boom era high schools. They started to have community municipal high schools. It wasn't the private organization anymore. And so that's why it eventually became the Bible College, why it eventually changed to something like that.
All right, let's shift to fun facts now of Hamilton County. These are 3 things that, according to you, are true and actually happened, okay? And I put that disclaimer on there because I'm the one reading it, but in some cases, the first time I've ever heard these things in my life. The first official airport in Hamilton County was Black Hawk Airport in Adams Township in 1945. What is that today?
Actually, it is a farm field.
Yeah.
That unfortunately was plowed under there. So we're doing some work on where those old fields were.
So the first official airport from 1945, Thorpe Creek on Geist Reservoir is named for the Tharp family who settled there in 1820s.
Yes. That's something we have to clarify to people.
So it doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going to read that again and make sure that I have down what I'm reading. Thorpe Creek on Geist Reservoir is named for the Tharp family. So that is either a typo from our producer or a typo in the history books, because that clearly can't be the case.
I'll cut your producer some slack.
Right,
it is a typo in the history books. It literally happened. It was called Tharp Creek very, very early on, but somewhere, I'm not quite sure where, in the Victorian era, they started making it an O instead of an A there. So
it literally is a typo that then over time, we'll just call it Thorpe Creek instead of going back. So the Tharp family has nothing attached to it other than that it was named for them briefly until somebody couldn't use a feather pen.
That's it.
Got it. Third fact, a local writer named Isaac Kachel.
I have no idea.
Who cares? A local writer named Isaac Kachel went internationally viral in 1837 when he ran for the state legislation and said that he would resolve the state's financial problems by replacing government currency with raccoon skins.
Yes.
Just when I thought the Thorpe discussion was a lot, we're now here with raccoon skins replacing government currency, similar to Bitcoin today. A local writer named Isaac Kachel, internationally viral in 1837.
Yes,
and he lived here.
Well, we don't know if he was real.
No.
That's what,
Oh, really? We don't even know if he's real.
It was something that was put into the newspapers in the 1830s, in 1837, and he just had these series of letters that he did. And he said he was eligible for the office because he was the first man to have killed a bear on the west side of White River. And needless to say, the English newspapers loved this. They said, look at these crazy Americans. They just ran with this all over the place. It even got to Australia.
This sounds like a story you'd hear at Sid's, to be quite honest with you. All right, so obviously some funny stories there, David, and some really crazy things that you probably didn't realize even happened in Hamilton County. This is 200 years of Hamilton County history in 15 minutes or less. David Heighway, I'm Adam Grubb. Next episode, we talk about the historic preservation of this great county, of the land, all of the great things that are still here today from the last 200 years. We talk about that next on 200 years of Hamilton County history.